Welcome to Unselfishly Me, a podcast all about self-love, self-care, and everything in between. I'm Jane, a personal trainer with a focus on self-love. Each week, we'll be chatting to someone about their self-love journey, how long it took, and what it took to get there. Today, we are speaking to Gaelyn Cokayne. Yes, cocaine, just not spelled the same way. A friend of mine that I actually met online, and we've just been getting along so well for the last few years and chatting about all things body image, self-love, and everything else in between. She's just always been so open and honest in her journey, and I just really appreciate that. So today we're going to be talking about body shaming online because we've both seen quite a lot of it happening recently, and we just want to chat about it and make light of how others perhaps see it online as well. So I'm really, really excited to chat to Gaelyn today. So here to dive deep into the world of self-love is Gaelyn. Welcome to the podcast, my very first guest. I'm so excited it is you and this topic. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Firstly, thank you so much, Jane, for inviting me. I feel honored that I'm your very first guest. My name's Gaelyn. I'm almost 34. I grew up in Durban, but I've lived in Madagascar, Tanzania, East London, and currently live an expat life in Zambia. I've just had my first baby last year. She's just turned 1, and I'm all about learning to love myself better and share love and spread kindness and joy wherever I go.
Amazing. So our first question is, what does self-love mean to you?
This is one that I think if you'd asked me a few years ago, I would have given you a different answer. But I've really focused quite hard on figuring out self-love for me personally over the last few years as I've walked an infertility journey. To me, now self-love means, I can sum it up in one word, it's nurture. I want to nurture myself, nurture my body, nurture my spirit, nurture my soul, and then also nurture those around me, because I can't love those around me if I don't love myself. And I'm a person of service and love, and I want to nurture myself, nurture others, and teach them how to be a happier, healthier, safer version of themselves.
Amazing. I resonate with all of that, and I think it is an amazing way of looking at it. So our next question is, what has your self-love journey looked like?
Gosh, it's been up and down, and to be honest, over the years, it's been a lot more down than up. Back in high school, I was always focused on being the best at everything, the most noticed, the most popular, the most clever, the most sporty, the leader of the play, the lead in the choir. And partly, yes, because I loved it, but also partly because I needed validation from elsewhere, because who I was as a person inside was never enough. And it took me many, many years to learn that, and a year of intensive therapy with an amazing psychologist to delve to the bottom of that, to realize that I am enough just as I am, and I don't need to make my life busier and louder and more noticeable in order to feel worthy. So over the last 3 years, I would say self-love has become a great focus that I put conscious work into every single day. It's a work in progress. It's not something that I will wake up when I'm 42 and say, I've done it. I'm now officially a self-love guru. I think it's something that I need to wake up every day and think, how am I going to show myself love today? How am I going to practice self-love today? How am I going to honor and nurture myself today? There were times when I suffered from depression. I was on medication. I was in counseling. I had a binge eating disorder. I got to 130 kilograms. Things were miserable and dark and lonely, and there were fortunately amazing friends and family and my incredible husband who stuck by me because they believed that I would find a way out of that and supported me on my journey to get out of that. And as I sit here now, I wouldn't say I'm cured or I'm fixed or I'm healed or I'm amazing yet, but I'm getting there. And every day brings me a step closer to being the best person I can be and loving myself entirely and loving myself even though I'm not where I want to be yet. And I think that's key. I think people think self-love is going to happen that day when I reach my goal weight, or it's going to happen that day when I get the promotion or when I meet the man of my dreams. It doesn't have to, and it shouldn't, and it won't. Self-love is going to happen today because you make it. And learning that was very valuable, and it's something that pulls me through dark days and days when I'm feeling less than, particularly through infertility. There were many, many days when I felt not good enough and unworthy and that I was not lovable. And those were the sort of messages that I learned to speak to myself to get through those difficult days, to reach a place now where I'm excited about who I am and I'm proud of who I am and I want more for myself. And that's, I think, the crux of self-love, isn't it?
I totally agree. But now I want to bring it back to the early years. So I had bullying experiences at school. So I wanted to know, how was your school experience? And did you have any bullying to do with your self-love, self-esteem?
Absolutely. I was never hugely overweight at school, but I was certainly chubbier than my friends. I hung out with the popular girls at school. I was loud and outspoken and opinionated, so I was kind of always in the spotlight for one reason or another. And in primary school, it was never really an issue, but certainly as we got into high school and I started to feel more insecure about myself, so did my friends. And I think the more insecure you feel about yourself, the more likely you are to pick on somebody else in order to give yourself that external validation. And I can think of just one instance off the top of my head. I was in about grade 9, so I was 14, and a group of friends and I went to the Gunston 500, and we walked up and down and looked at all the stalls and decided we were going to go for a swim in the sea, which is one of my favorite things to do. And we got onto the sand and got undressed, and I was pulling my baggies off. And a skinny friend looked at me and said, "Oh my gosh, Gaelyn, why are you taking off your baggies?" And I said, "Well, we're swimming, aren't we?" And she said, "Well, girls your size should probably keep their baggies on." And I was mortified because it was the first blatant comment about my weight and the first very obvious mean girl thing to hear. And I think I just stood there speechless because, I mean, I was a swimmer, so people didn't swim in their clothes. Like, you don't swim in baggies, you swim in a costume. And it really then made me think, well, what is she seeing that I'm not about myself? Perhaps I've missed something. And I was just so humiliated. None of the other girls stood up for me. They all just kind of skipped off in their string bikinis. And I thought, I really need to think about this. I've done something wrong. And from there, it was like a switch was flipped, and that self-doubt that hadn't ever been there was there. And I started to really worry about other people's opinions. And of course, teenage girls are horrible. And the more they saw my insecurities creeping in, the more they felt that I was a good target to pick on. And I mean, every year there was always one or two instances. And the worst thing was that I saw it happening to other girls, you know, the girls who were even bigger than me, and how they were spoken to and comments that were made at them, and nobody stood up for them. It was just cruel. And you don't realize how something you tell a 12, 13, 14-year-old sticks with her for the rest of her life. I mean, there were one or two other random incidents. Even a teacher, I was always involved in the school play, and I auditioned and I was given the lead role. And the teacher said, "Look, you've got to wear some skimpy outfits if you want the lead. Here's some spirulina. Make sure you take it so you can lose at least 10 kgs before we go and have opening night." And it was just accepted. You know, I wanted to be the lead. I wanted to be the star, and I had to look the part. And so that's exactly what I did. And as a little teenager, you don't think to question it. You don't think, you know, you're not putting me up on stage because of what I look like. You're putting me up there because of my talents. But yeah, it's school. It sets those internal tapes that you play to yourself over and over and over again as an adult. And I think it's important that we all put an effort to delete those tapes and re-record things that are going to be valuable for us as adults.
I think the worst part is that those things were coming from friends. So it's not even how other people would be thinking about you that are strangers. It's literally coming from your friends and then your teachers. It's just shocking. I want to ask you, what self-love practices do you do each day?
There's one that I've always loved. And it actually came from when I was in high school and I was super busy with sport and plays and I got home late. My mom would do it for me. She would, when I came home at 8 or 9 o'clock exhausted, she would have run a bath for me, put a glass of water on a tray next to the bath with my supper on a plate. And I would literally walk in the door, drop into the bath and eat my supper in the bath. And it just made me feel so loved and so nurtured. And I sort of forgot about it for a few years. And about 5 years ago, I remembered how special and how good that made me feel. And so I decided to start doing it for myself again. So my bath time every night is my sacred time. My family knows it. My husband, my teenage daughter. I mean, that is my time. Jane often jokes because I'll be chatting to her for 2 hours and she's like, are you still in the bath? I'm like, yeah, this is my time. And I'll drop in a bath bomb and I'll pour myself something nice to drink. Sometimes I might have a chocolate or a piece of cake. And it is just my time to sit in myself in silence. And sometimes I listen to a podcast or I listen to a bath playlist or watch an uplifting video and just have that time for myself to basically, I mean, to be completely blunt, I just lie there in my nakedness and appreciate my body and look at the rolls and curves and folds and lumps and bumps and scars and sort of remember the journey that life's brought me on to look this way. Something that I learned through Jane's Unselfishly Me course, which I wasn't doing before, and I've continued doing, is every morning when I wake up, for the first 30 to 60 minutes of the day, I don't pick up my phone. It's just me, my baby, my husband, my dogs. I don't check a message. I don't check social media. I just have our space. I hold that space just for me and my family. I might meditate, I'll journal, I'll pray, and just have that quiet and that still before the day starts and you get distracted by other people. Those are two of my favorite and most valuable ways that I show myself self-love.
Yeah, I agree. I love a good bath, and it's close the door, stay away. This is me. Okay, now you are a new mom. You do have a stepdaughter who is a teenager, but how has becoming a mom to a baby changed you?
I suppose I can't really talk about becoming a mom without touching a little bit on what it took to become a mom. I met my husband when his daughter was 4 months old, so we became an instant family. And my dream as a child was to grow up and be a wife and a mom. I've never been a career woman. And so becoming a stepmom was my first taste of motherhood, and it was beautiful. And I get on incredibly well with her, which is a blessing. But when we decided that we were ready to start our own family, it was not plain sailing. I was diagnosed with premature ovarian aging, which basically means that at age 30, my eggs were that of a 45 or 50-year-old. How's that for a blow? So I knew that it was going to be challenging. We were told to start saving for IVF. We were told that things would be very difficult. And we managed to conceive 3 times on our own, and each time we miscarried. The first miscarriage was on my birthday. The second miscarriage was on my husband's birthday, and the third was on my mother's birthday. And I just sat there thinking, why am I so unworthy? Why am I not good enough? What is wrong with my body? Is it because of all those years of being overweight? Is it because I don't love myself enough? Is it because I'm not looking after my body well enough? I need to be better. I need to do more. I'm not good enough. And that road, those years of infertility were incredibly difficult and had a very negative impact on my self-love because, I mean, how do we think? We think our purpose on life as a woman is to bear children, and my body was failing. When I did fall pregnant with a child that stuck, I was so incredibly sick. I had hyperemesis gravidarum, so I lost a load of weight. I was vomiting up to 20 times every day for 6 months. I had just immigrated to Zambia. I had no friends. I had no support system. And again, I just thought, why is everything so difficult? Why am I still not getting a break? Why am I still not good enough? And I probably carried on thinking that until the very day I gave birth and saw my daughter and thought, oh, that's why, because this is who was coming. And each day that I spend with her, she's just turned 1. So I've had a year with her now, and each day I spend with her, I think, okay, it all makes sense. It was all for you. It was because you were the one we were waiting for. You were the one that was coming. I needed to reach another place in my development and in my maturity and inside myself before I was ready to welcome you and teach you and guide you through life. And just seeing that my body was capable and could do it. And I suppose I didn't really trust it at all until after she was out. And looking back, I can say I need to trust it more because look what it did. And it did a good job because she's incredible. And it's just shifted something in that it may not look the way I wanted to. It probably will never look the way I would love it to most. But it did what I wanted it to do more than anything else in the world. How can I ever hate that? It's literally blown my expectations open and given me this best miracle. So every time I find myself thinking something negative or doubting it or sending a negative message to my body, I think, hang on a second, it's because of this body that you are where you are, and it's because of this body that you are finally a mom. So I'm grateful for it.
Sure. I know your story. So I'm just sitting here listening to everything again, and I'm just everything you went through, it was just insane. What would you say to new moms out there about showing themselves self-love? Because I know there's a lot of guilt about that.
Yeah, there really is. I was actually having this conversation with a friend the other day. I just spent my second night away from my daughter in a full year this week. I was on a workshop. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm such an amazing mom because I've only ever spent 2 nights away from her. And one was because I was in hospital, so it didn't count. And then I caught myself and I thought, Gaelyn, what on earth are you talking about? That doesn't make you a great mom. And then I thought, the mom who goes to work might think, I'm a really great mom because I'm able to leave my child every day for 8 hours and go and earn an income, and we're not glued at the hip and we're able to separate. That doesn't make her a great mom. The mom who spends every single day as a stay-at-home mom creating amazing sensory play activities isn't a better mom. And then I thought, you know what? Being a good mom is whatever that means to you. And, somebody might judge me for leaving my child for a night before she's 10, and somebody else might say, well, I left her for a night before she was 6 weeks. Self-love and motherhood and guilt are so linked. And I feel like you need to find the messages that make you feel uplifted and supported, because it's not going to be the same for your friends. So you can confide in a friend about something that's causing you anxiety or insecurity, and she might look at you with crooked eyes and say, well, what the heck is wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. Figure out what makes you feel good about being a mom and focus on that. And, it's an age-old thing. People say you can't pour from an empty cup. And as moms, we don't really have time or energy to fill our cups up. But it doesn't have to be a complicated, expensive thing. I mean, like my baths, I still have my bath almost every night. And my husband knows if that baby squeaks, he's got to be there, because I will not get out the bath for nothing. And so that's free, that's cheap, that's just in the house. And that makes me feel fulfilled, and it's not taking it away from her. She's sleeping happily. It's not neglectful. It's not abusive. I mean, whatever that is for you, whether it's getting a mani, whether it's going for a facial, whether it's going for coffee with a friend or having a glass of wine or going out for a jawl. If you're a partier and you want to go clubbing, that doesn't make you a bad mom. It makes you a good mom if you can do it, have an amazing time, fill your soul cup and come home and just kiss your child good morning and have another great day. It's imperative that we find ways to nurture ourselves and look after ourselves as women first, because we are also setting an example to our children. They need to look up and see, wow, mom takes really good care of herself. She loves her bath, and there she goes, goodbye kids, off I go. And so I can also do that. I'm also allowed to have downtime or alone time or time to look after myself. It's imperative. And not enough women pay attention to that, I think. And it's something that I try and remind my friends, and I ask my friends to remind me of when they can see that perhaps I'm not devoting that time as I should every week, because that's what makes you a better mom.
I totally agree. I think that the mom guilt in this realm is just overwhelming, just seeing it from my friends, and that everyone deserves to actually have some time to themselves. Okay, we're going to move on to body shaming, our favorite topic and why you're here. So have you experienced body shaming, and what do you think about the body shaming that happens online?
Well, obviously I hate it. Yes, I've been body shamed. Something that, just a little bit of background, in 2012, I lost 35 kgs. I went from being morbidly obese to quite thin. And what blew me away was that when I was at my heaviest, I was body shamed for being too fat. And when I got down to my lightest, I was body shamed for being too skinny. And by all means, I don't think I was too skinny at all, and doctors agree. And I mean, I would send you a photo and you would agree. But for people who had only ever known me as overweight, I looked incredibly thin. And they assumed I had been unhealthy in the way I got there. And it just made me think, there really is no winning. There really is no prime, ideal, perfect body. If you're big, you're too big. If you're small, you're too small. If you're medium, you're boring because you're too medium. And I just think people need to butt out. Like, literally, that's all it comes down to for me. Unless you are living inside my body or living inside my house and underage, what you eat and how you live your life is none of my business. People have pulled me aside, close friends who thought they were being helpful, even family members, and said, we're worried about your health because you're unhealthy. I can show you the doctor's reports. I was healthy. My glucose levels were stable. My blood pressure was stable. I was perfectly healthy. I'd come off antidepressants. It's not about health, and also saying that somebody who's overweight is unhealthy and that's why you're worried. Do you go to your friend who's diabetic and check in with them once a month and ask if they're taking their meds and are they eating well and are they looking after themselves because they're unhealthy? And it almost makes it like it's their fault. Being overweight, there's millions of reasons why people are overweight. They eat too much. They eat the wrong things. They have a thyroid issue. They're greedy pigs. Whatever. Let them be. I remember saying that to a friend once. She asked me why I was so overweight. And I said, because I'm greedy. I love food. I love food a bit more than I should. And I need to, find some balance in my life. And she stood there with, her jaw, I think, almost hit the floor, because how could I speak about myself that way? And how could I be so blunt? But at that stage, that was the truth. Body shaming is something I think people do when they are incredibly insecure within themselves. I don't know. I would never have the guts to walk up to someone and comment on what they looked like unless I was complimenting them. And so I think you must be incredibly unhappy within yourself to find that push to go up to somebody, whether online or to their face, and comment about what they look like in a negative way. There have been some incidents recently, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. Do I call them out? Do I ignore it? Do I just let it slide? And eventually I did decide to call them out in a really polite and respectful way, because I feel so strongly about it, and I feel people just need to back off. Really, it's cruel and it's unkind, and it sits with somebody for the rest of their life. Your passing comment can really, really trigger something in someone. How would you feel if you knew that 3 weeks later she overdosed because of something you had said? And it all comes down to bullying. Nobody likes a bully, but very few people are brave enough to admit that perhaps their family member is a bully, or their friend is a bully, or somebody that they follow online is a bully, and step away and back off from that. It's just unacceptable, really.
So would you say that it's become a trend to actually body shame people online?
I think to a degree, yes, because if we look at media publications, magazines, and blogs who are devoted to commenting on celebrities, what is 90% of their comment? It's about what the person looks like. So when you see the Cosmo magazine or the Heat magazine, whatever magazine it is, I don't buy any of them, so I actually don't know what they say anymore. But when you see, or like bloggers who follow celebrities, when you see them commenting on Kim Kardashian's cellulite or this one's baby weight that she still got after 5 days, and it becomes normal. It becomes something that you're overexposed to because you're hearing it all day, every day. And so it becomes totally normal and accepted, and it slips into conversation. So for sure, I think it's become a trend. I would like to think that for the majority of people, they don't realize they're doing it. But unfortunately, for some people, I think it is intentional. And I think they do get a kick out of pointing out somebody else's flaws. And perhaps it makes them feel popular, or it gets them lots of likes online, or a good laugh from their friends. And it's a confidence boost for them.
Yes, I totally agree. And we're seeing it more and more, so it literally is becoming a problem. So we had that incident on Twitter. I'll just recap for people. So Gaelyn follows someone that she respects and admires and who's been following for ages. And she had tweeted saying, I don't know what to do. Or you actually made it very broad. It could have been anyone. She said, what do you do when there's someone that you follow and you respect and admire, but you've seen them and you said body shame or being racist or homophobic? It could have been anyone, really. And I actually saw it, and I messaged her and I was like, so what did you decide to do? Because she had asked, do you call them out or whatever? And then she showed me what the person had said, and I was livid. As someone who's been training people from both sides of the spectrum, to put on weight and to lose weight, I've heard everyone's stories. And for me, with this whole self-love journey and trying to promote it, I was just mortified. I'm not saying word for word, but basically she had tweeted, she was obviously sitting at the gym, and she was looking at Kauai, and she saw an overweight lady who had just trained, and she wrote, no fat lady, something about you don't deserve to have that extra large Kauai smoothie after training. And I was like, what? So she's firstly, she's body shaming someone because she's calling someone fat, and she's mocking her and saying she shouldn't be having a smoothie after training. But it has nothing to do with her. She doesn't know who that person is, what they've done. They could have done like flippin' marathon. And we all just kind of got very angry. But Gaelyn was very nice. She had just, tweeted her nicely and just kind of opened her eyes to the fact that she is body shaming. And she was just like, you know what, that could have been me you were talking about. Then I saw it and then I replied and I was like, I'm actually so shocked that this has been said. Like, I know all the heartache of my clients and you also don't know her story. And then it kind of gathered momentum from there and people started like replying. She didn't actually delete her tweet or even apologize. 4 days later, she still hadn't done anything, and everyone was still very upset, obviously. And one of her reasons when she replied to you, and she's like, well, I didn't go up to the person and tell them. And to me, that's actually worse because you don't have the balls to go and actually tell someone how you feel. And she replied to a friend of ours, Kiri, as well, and said, but she doesn't follow me, so she's not going to see that. And I thought, how do you know she doesn't follow you, for one? And it's not about that. It's about the 2,000 or 3,000 people who do follow her that were now getting triggered because of what she said about someone else. And it just had nothing to do with her why this person was actually drinking a smoothie after training. Could be her once a week one. I personally, and it doesn't matter if this is the truth or not, but I personally think that maybe she hit her rewards on Discovery for the week and that was her reward smoothie. And let's be honest, when there's a free one, you're not going to get the small. When I go to Seattle and I hit my free one, I'm not ordering the short one that I always have. I'll get the grande. I probably won't finish it. Yeah. But like, it's free and it is the biggest size, so you just take it. So whether or not that's the truth, it doesn't actually matter. But that's what I personally think. And if that is what she did, who cares? Like, we were just so angry that she's judging someone, A, for their size, and then B, for what they're doing. Meantime, she is at gym. She is trying.
Yeah, exactly. I was a bit speechless. Also, to make it so public, and it sort of ties in with what I was saying earlier, it's become accepted and it's become normal to be so critical and so judgmental. And the fact that I am overweight and I do like going to gym and I particularly enjoy a kawaii after gym made me think, well, is that what everyone's saying about me when I go to gym? And something that I think almost everybody can relate to regardless of your size. Starting an exercise program and getting to gym is very difficult. It's very overwhelming. It's probably terrifying for many of us because of that exact reason. You're so worried about people judging you. And that is exactly what she did. And I think by making it about me, a person who, she's DM'd me and told me how much she admires me and how inspiring I am to her and how much she respects me for my journey and my openness and my courage, to then make a statement like that about someone who could very well have been me just was a bit of a slap in the face. And that's why I decided to message her back and just say, that's a really unkind thing to say. You could have been talking about me. And as Jen said, it exploded and it pretty much went viral. There were hundreds and hundreds of replies just beeping through for days and days and days. Yeah, and then, eventually there was an article written about her on Women 24, and people were quoted and snapshots and screenshots. And, I like to think that perhaps the message did get through to her because eventually she did reply and apologize to me. She didn't apologize to all big people or, for being insensitive. She apologized to me and said, she's always found me nice and beautiful, regardless of my size, which was kind of, I don't know. I don't know whether she knew what she was saying when she said that or whether she meant it as a backhanded apology. But either way, it was an apology, and I just said thank you very much. And I really do sincerely hope that everybody who saw those threads online took a step back and thought, wow, number one, it's not cool. Number two, it's unkind. And number three, people are going to start calling you out on it, because I honestly believe that we've had enough. People have had enough of being bullied and shamed and criticized for things that are nobody else's business. You can choose to be supportive or judgmental. What kind of person are you? That's entirely up to you.
I totally agree. And I think that it also goes to the other side of the spectrum where people are getting skinny shamed as well. And I tweeted about that just to make people aware, because it's also part of the problem. So let's move on to mom shaming. How was your experience going through your fertility struggles? And were you supported? Did you feel shamed by other moms? How did you feel going through that?
I think it's a little bit different for me because I had a stepdaughter who I spent a load of time with. We had shared custody, so she was with me every other week. So there were people who just called me her mum, and I was just the mum, and that was great. And there were people who went out of their way to make sure I always remembered I was not her mum, and that I was just a stepmom, and that I was not as important and not as involved, despite the fact that actually I was more involved than anybody else in her life, and we loved each other dearly and are very good friends. When I started opening up about my infertility battles, it actually, in a way, gave people the opportunity to be more understanding and more caring about our situation, because before then it had been questions all the time about when we were adding to our family and how selfish we were for not giving my stepdaughter a sibling because she's a teenager now and she needs a sibling more than anything, and don't we realize how cruel we are? And that's one of the reasons why I decided to open up about my miscarriages, because I wanted people to understand how upsetting those kind of questions and comments can be to someone in the midst of trauma. I mean, just for example, after my second miscarriage, I was back in the gym and I was doing my first workout after being cleared by the doctor to exercise. And a friend's mom, who I hadn't seen in a while, came up to me and patted me on the shoulder and said how lovely it was to see me trying to look after my body. And when are we going to have a baby? Because we're really, really cruel to Zoe for not giving her a sibling. And I mean, I was literally still recovering. I was still taking medication. I was just a mess. And I looked her dead in the eye and just said, I'm currently still bleeding from my second miscarriage. Why don't you back off? And I think she would have fallen over if she hadn't been holding on to a gym machine. And perhaps it was a bit blunt of me, but I was in such a sensitive place. It was literally the first time I was leaving the house and getting out and trying to heal. And she just drove that dagger into my heart. And it just, not having kids is also a form of mom shaming. And just whether you decide not to have kids, or you're struggling to have kids, or you decide to have kids in an unusual way or a non-traditional way, that's also mom shaming, because the expectation is that you'll get married by this age, have a baby by this age, have an amazing pregnancy, do an amazing pregnancy shoot, have an uncomplicated birth on this beautiful, perfect baby. Not everyone has those goals for themselves, and not everyone's life works out that way. I'm walking proof of that. And then, of course, once you have a baby, it's all wonderful and everyone's very excited for you. But they're also very keen to watch very closely every single little thing you do. I'm active on social media. I love sharing my daughter. I love posting about the random things and the amazing things and the fun things and the boring things. And I must be honest, I think perhaps because people know I'm really outspoken, they're a bit nervous to shame me too much. But I see it on other people's accounts all the time. I mean, a simple thing like, here's a photo of little Johnny eating his first ice lolly in the car on the way home from the beach, and there will be 5 comments about the way he's strapped into his car seat. I mean, like, really? And then nowadays people are preempting the shaming. They will say, here's a photo of little Johnny eating an ice lolly. Don't worry, the car was parked. That's why he's not clipped in. Like, it just puts us on the defensive before anyone's even said anything. And my response to that is, get better followers. Be selective of who you allow in your space, because to be fair, social media is still your space. Just like you don't invite anyone into your home, the rule needs to be for who you allow into your social media space. And when you see someone being unkind and mom shaming, call them out. A few weeks ago, I was actually accused of mom shaming. And it was actually really hurtful, because I feel like the furthest thing from a mom shamer. I'll share the story quickly. There was a campaign at the time at the beginning of the school year, when a load of mom bloggers were sent lunchboxes. And obviously they were all encouraged to post amazing photos of their children's lunchboxes. And then you get the little heart-shaped cookie cutter sandwiches and the fancy little Pinterest meals. And look, I'm not a Pinterest mom, so it kind of went over my head and I didn't pay too much attention. But another mom had posted on Twitter something about, where do these moms get the time and energy and inclination and expense, or like finances, to make these gourmet, amazing lunchboxes? And she actually said, it causes me such anxiety. And my response to her was, don't let it, because I'm sure part of it is a campaign that they paid to do. Part of it is very creative moms with a lot of time on their hands. Part of it is non-fussy kids. Don't take it personally. And a couple of hours later, I started getting tweeted about how I was mom shaming these creative moms, and I was jealous because they had more time for their lunchboxes. And I'm subtweeting, and why don't I just tell the moms themselves? And I was like, whoa, hold on. My intention was to help this other mom not feel insecure about her child's jam sandwich. And just say, you know what I mean? Like, it's all good. Don't stress. Is your child hungry? No? Great. You're doing a good job. And so I think it also, people are very defensive and assume that even just a simple supportive comment is mom shaming someone somewhere along the line. And sometimes it makes me feel we shouldn't talk about moms at all. But then we lose that sense of community that is so helpful and so useful and so valuable for moms. So it's a tough one, but it's definitely there. And you've just got to protect yourself and call out those who are behaving in a way you don't appreciate.
I think that's the most important part, is to start actually calling people out, because it's the only way that everyone collectively is also going to learn, by reading other comments and by seeing tweets and thinking, oh, I've actually done that before. I need to stop doing that. I didn't realize I was shaming people, and that I must keep my thoughts in my head, perhaps.
Yeah, and we all do make mistakes. I mean, I've done things online when someone's messaged me and said, hey, did you think about how they came across? Or, I mean, I've made such a big mistake on Facebook. I got myself fired from a job. I don't really share that openly, but I've learned the hard way about how social media can get you into big trouble. And so by calling people out and by just explaining how maybe that was hurtful or insensitive, it gives someone room to talk. And you can really do it in a sweet, polite, respectful way. It doesn't have to be a full-on attack, and it doesn't have to be public. We need to step up and support one another and stand up for each other and ourselves more.
I totally agree. With regards to gym shaming and body shaming people, how can the public be more supportive to those going to gym and training, especially if it might be your first time in a gym, you might have come back after putting on a lot of weight and you're already feeling self-conscious? What would be the best way for us to be supportive in a gym environment, and what would you like to see more of?
Well, specifically with regards to somebody who's just had a baby who's going back to gym, I think a good thing would be to invite your friend to join you. So if you are a regular gym goer, or you go for walks, or you go for swims or cycles, whatever, invite your new mum friend who's been cleared to exercise and has told you she would like to start exercising. Invite her to join you and just say, hey, we can, stick at your pace. Let's go and do something together, because I understand it can be really terrifying and overwhelming to get back the first time. Once she's there, obviously, don't laugh at her. Don't make comments about anything except how amazing she is and how proud of her you are. And when you see someone at gym, look, I mean, I started at gym not knowing anything. So for the first few weeks, I just walked on the treadmill because it was the only machine I knew how to work. But if you see someone on a machine that they don't know how to use, instead of taking a video and posting it online because gym fail, go up to her quietly and ask if they can use some help. You're like, I can see you struggling to figure this out. Can I give you a hand? Or find a trainer and ask one of the trainers, look, I've spotted that person over there that's having a difficult time. I can see they aren't figuring it out, or they're doing it wrong, or they're, being unsafe. Would you mind going to give them some guidance? I mean, I've had people come up to me and do that, and I felt really touched and really supported. And, it's not a case of walk up to a fat person at the gym and high five them for getting off the couch. But if you can see someone struggling, give them some encouragement. Or if you have a friend who's shared with you that they want to get started, invite them to join you, because going with a friend makes it a million times better. If you got a personal trainer, ask the personal trainer, hey, I've got a friend who's just had a baby and she's keen. Can she join us for a free trial session? I bet you 99% of people would be keen to assist with that sort of thing. Or let's go for a walk on the beach. It's such a beautiful day and you can put the baby in the pram. Or just encourage and support, but wait for them to indicate to you that they're ready for it. Because if you go up to someone who's not ready, she's going to take that as, oh my gosh, she thinks I'm so fat, I need to exercise. There's so much you can do. Invite them for lunch at a restaurant that has great healthy options, or, delicious food that they love that's healthy, instead of, come over to my house for a massive chocolate cake, which is just going to test and challenge them in a not great way.
Which is something I would probably do. Look at my Chateau Gâteau cake in my freezer. Hashtag not sponsored. I think I just wanted to touch on that as well, because I worked at Virgin Active for 5 years before I opened my own studio. And that is something that I did a lot of. If I saw someone struggling, I know as a trainer you meant to, but technically it's not actually our job. It's generally the lifestyle consultants walking around, but they never did that. So I would just hop along to someone and be like, I see you struggling with this. Can I help you? Or, oh no, you put your legs under here. And I think it's also nice coming from regular gym goers, because you kind of more relatable maybe. And they might be intimidated when a trainer comes across, or think that we're trying to get them as a client, which I'm like, not. But another thing that I think is very important, and I hope you can all start doing this, is just if you see someone, and it's not a pity thing, but if you see someone who's overweight at the gym and you can see that it's like their first week, or you know, they're quite green coming to the gym, just smile.
For sure.
You know, say hello, like you'll start seeing them at the same time, like be friendly. You don't have to go have a conversation with the person, but just smile so that they feel a little bit more human and that you are actually acknowledging that they're there, because I think half the time they think that you staring at them, which I'm sure some people are. So if you actually take your resting bitch face off and smile at the person, and then they can see, oh, there's some friendly people at this gym, it's not too bad. So I think the lesson from today is to be kind to others, to stop judging and stop posting judgment online, because we will find you and we will comment and we will out you. And yeah, just to love yourself a little bit more. So I just wanted to thank Gaelyn for coming on today. She's actually here from Zambia, and literally we had to fit this in because I needed to chat with her because I've been wanting to for ages. So I just want to thank her for coming on and maybe opening everyone's eyes about body shaming, mom shaming, fertility, pregnancy, just everything, and just being a kind of human.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great, and I hope that it gives people pause for thought and perhaps a different perspective. You know, perhaps you were just too nervous to ask someone how they felt about something, and I've answered a question, but you know, everyone's approachable, and if you approach with love and kindness, you can ask people how they feel, or, you know, ask how they need to be supported, or how can I encourage you on this journey you've decided to undertake. That goes a long way, and again, that ties in with self-love. If you're loving yourself, you are in a better position to love others, and everyone loves a self-lover, and everyone loves a lover who loves them.
I agree. And where can people find you on social media if they want to follow your mom journey?
I have a blog. It's called Gaelyn's Heart of Iron. I blog very irregularly. I suppose I should change my subtitle to The Blogger Who Doesn't Blog. But I'm very active on Instagram. It's Gaelyn Cokayne, Gaecokayne. And yeah, that's where you'll find me pretty much all day, every day.
I will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to Unselfishly Me. Follow us on Instagram at unselfishlyme and check out our website www.unselfishlyme.com.